What if I told you that your inner world is kind of like a garden, a hidden, private place that needs constant care? Today, we're going to explore this really powerful idea, the huge difference between actually tending that inner garden and just, polishing the fence for everyone else to see. So let me just ask you this, right from the get-go. Are you spending your life polishing the fence, or are you really in there tending the garden? It's a question that gets right to the core of a tension that, let's be honest, we all feel. That pull between keeping up appearances and cultivating what's truly real deep down inside of us. So on one side, you've got the fence. That's all the outward rules, the traditions, the stuff we do to look good. And on the other, you have the garden, our heart, our inner thoughts, the very source of who we really are. And it is so easy to get caught up in perfecting that fence, making it look amazing, that we completely forget the garden behind it is becoming totally overgrown with weeds. And believe me, that's a mistake with real consequences. Now, this is not a new idea, not at all. In fact, the roots of this whole metaphor stretch back 2,000 years to a really tense confrontation that reveals everything about what's at the heart of the matter. Okay, so picture this. It's first century Jerusalem, a group of religious leaders, the Pharisees. They come up to Jesus. But they're not there to learn. They're there to inspect, to find fault. They've noticed that his disciples are eating without doing this very specific ceremonial hand-washing ritual, a really key part of what they called the tradition of the elders. And Jesus' response? It is sharp. He quotes the ancient prophet Isaiah, saying, "These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me." Whoa. He's basically calling out their hypocrisy. They were so focused on the outward show, the fence, that they'd completely neglected the garden growing inside them. And then he shares this totally revolutionary idea. He calls the crowd over and explains that true uncleanness, what really makes a person unclean, it doesn't come from the outside, like from eating with unwashed hands. No, it starts inside, in the heart. It's not about what goes into a person, it's all about what comes out. So what are these things that come from within? Well, Jesus doesn't hold back. He lists them right out. Greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly. These are the weeds that truly stain a person. These are the things that grow from an untended heart. So what does it look like when these weeds actually take over? We might not use a word like defilement today, but we all know that feeling of being totally consumed by emotions like anger. And what's absolutely fascinating is that modern science gives us a window right into our brains to see exactly what is happening in those moments. It's called an amygdala hijack. And you can think of it as your brain's internal alarm system just going completely haywire. The amygdala, which is your emotional command center, senses a threat and just slams the panic button, totally bypassing your rational brain and flooding you with pure, raw emotion. And this whole process, it happens in a flash. As you can see here, it all starts with a perceived threat. Maybe it's a cutting remark from someone or a super stressful situation at work. Instantly, that signal takes a detour around your logical brain and goes straight to the amygdala. And before you can even think, your body is in full-on fight-or-flight mode. When this hijack happens, your body is flooded with stress hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart starts pounding, your breathing gets faster, and your body is literally primed for action. It's an ancient survival mechanism for sure, but it's one that can cause us to say or do things we seriously regret. A pretty cool strategy here is to name it to tame it. Just thinking the words, "I'm feeling angry," can actually start to re-engage your rational brain and calm that storm down. But here's the good news. We are not helpless against these inner storms. The weeds might be powerful, but our brains have an equally powerful tool for cultivating the flowers: our attention. Have you ever bought a new car and then all of a sudden you start seeing that exact same model everywhere you go? Yeah, that's not a coincidence. It's a cognitive bias called the frequency illusion, but you might know it as the red car effect. It's really a two-step process. First, selective attention tunes your brain to notice that red car. Then, confirmation bias kicks in and makes you feel like you're seeing it everywhere, reinforcing the idea that it's way more common than it really is. Your brain is basically looking for evidence to support what it's already focused on. And here's the crucial takeaway. What you choose to focus on will, quite literally, shape your reality. You can actually harness this. If you actively look for reasons to be frustrated, you will find them. But if you actively look for moments of gratitude or kindness, your brain will start to find those everywhere too, cultivating a very, very different kind of garden. Now, this power of focus isn't just a personal thing. When the unattended garden belongs to someone in power, the weeds can spread and choke out an entire nation. And for a really stark example, we just have to turn to the cautionary tale of King Henry VIII. Henry VIII was completely obsessed with having a male heir. When his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, couldn't give him one, he asked the Pope for an annulment. The Pope said no. So, driven by his own personal desire and impatience, Henry just took matters into his own hands, secretly marrying the already pregnant Anne Boleyn in 1533. And just like that, one man's inner turmoil became a national crisis. In 1534, Parliament passed the Act of Supremacy. This wasn't just some law. It was a political and religious earthquake that completely severed England from the Catholic Church and made the king the new head of the Church of England. The consequences were immediate and they were severe. Citizens were required to take an oath, renouncing all foreign authority, which meant the Pope, and swearing their allegiance to Henry. And if you refused, that was treason. The weeds from one man's heart, his arrogance, his greed, his folly, had completely redefined the religious and political landscape of an entire country. So we've seen how this ancient idea of the inner garden echoes through neuroscience and all the way through history. But what does that mean for us, right here, right now? How do we start tending our own gardens? Well, the path really starts with looking past the fence, seeing beyond just our actions and our good intentions. Then it takes real courage to acknowledge the weeds we find inside without making excuses. From there, we can use the power of our attention to deliberately focus on and cultivate the good stuff. And finally, it means having the humility to admit that sometimes we need help to truly cleanse the soil at its source. Ultimately, the message here is crystal clear. True growth isn't about endlessly polishing the fence to impress everybody else. No, it's about the difficult, humbling, and life-changing work of allowing our hearts to be transformed from the inside out. It's about tending to the garden so that kindness and honesty and love can flow out of us naturally. So as we wrap this up, the question isn't for some king or a philosopher, it's for you. In the garden of your own heart, what will you choose to cultivate today? The weeds or the flowers? The choice and the harvest is all yours.